What's up, everybody? Your biggest fans here, and welcome to the Kondos Couch Podcast episode
Number 1.
Uno.
Uno.
My name is Gavin.
I'm Andrea.
And today we're going to be talking about
Death.
And so we're just going to get right into this thing. Andrea, do you have the definition of death? And
Yes, I do. So,
while you pull that up, I'm going to pour some coffee. Is that okay?
awesome. So the definition of death, it is. The noun definition is the action or fact of dying or being killed, the end of the life of a person or organism. It is also the state of being dead, and then the permanent ending of vital processes in a cell or tissue. If we want to get very, very technical about the word death. So that is a definition. Very happy definition.
I know. We said we want to start this podcast, and why not just jump into it with a very somber and intense topic?
Absolutely.
Well,
So why? Why did we choose death as our first episode?
I think for me, just personally, at the end of 2020, so 2020 itself was just...
Fun.
Yeah, big good F word to use for the 2020, but it was just a crazy year. And at the end of 2020, I ended up losing my grandma, the closest grandma I have. She lived here in the Metroplex, and it was very sudden. She ended up passing away from COVID complications, and it was just pretty intense. And I can't really say that I have fully recovered. I can't say that I have fully processed.
It just happened.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very fresh still.
Yes. But I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about the loss and kind of even my grieving. And I wanted to just share that with some people, but obviously you, my wife, you've walked it with me, and I know that you've experienced some things in your life that are pretty intense as well that I know that we could both talk about. But yeah, so I mean, I could just start with telling, kind of what happened, and then the subsequent few weeks after, and then we can talk about your story and some things that...
Just pretty much how we both processed loss in general, and different ways to process the passing of someone that we love. Just speaking from that place. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like some coffee before we start?
Please.
Loud noise alert. I'm literally about to stir this, but I promise to use a quieter stirrer next time. I did not think ahead. So just let me... There we go. Look at that. All right. So, like I said, back in the end of 2020, we actually got married in November of 2020. So we're recently newlyweds, and we got back from our honeymoon. And while we were just getting back into the States, we had received a text that my 78-year-old grandma had been in the hospital with COVID. And her and I texted her immediately, and I even texted her every day of her being in the hospital. And she would text me back, and I would always say things about how much I can't wait to see her, how Andrea's looking forward to seeing her, we're praying for her, and she would text back, I love you, thank you, this is hard, but I can't, and she was very optimistic. She was saying, I'm going to get out soon, all these things. And so, my hopes were high. And then, and the doctors recommended to put her on the ventilator treatment, which really, that's just all we know as, I think, the rest of the population thinks is like that's just kind of a treatment that you do. So we did it, and then that ended up causing complications within her because just it's such an intense treatment, and so she ended up just I think maybe 5 days after being put on the ventilator, passing away from a stroke, which we believe was caused by complications with the ventilator. And it was very sudden because literally I had just seen her the week of our wedding. We FaceTimed her on Thanksgiving, and then it was just, she was gone. And a few years prior to this, I would say, I can't remember the date exactly, but I would say about 7 years prior to this, her husband passed away, my grandpa passed away, and I wasn't even in the state. And it was sad, but I think at that time, I kind of took it on myself that in my adult life that I would dedicate to making sure my grandma felt loved, knew that she was supported, that she could be herself with me and my son. And so I visited her pretty consistently as long as I've lived in the Metroplex, and took her shopping, took her to dinner, invited friends over to her place because she loved cooking for people. And, I really just was invested in her life, and just as much as she was invested into mine. And so with her passing, this was, like I said, very sudden, and I chose, and honestly, with your help, I'll be very real, I really let myself feel the full brunt of emotion. Like I said, the passing of my grandpa, I wasn't even in the state. And I remember I got a phone call while I was out doing a trip from my college. And I went to the restroom and I cried once, and then that was it. And I was like, okay, we're good. And I remember we were on our way to the hospital that night, Andre and I, and I remember I put some gum in my mouth. I was like, this is to help me stop from crying. And she goes, you just need to. You have to. And I remember that night saying our goodbyes and just letting the full wave of emotion come over me. And I think somewhere in the back of my mind feeling like, oh, this is weakness or this is not normal. I think that is such a societal construct that we love to empower men to a degree to feel certain emotions, to be a certain way, and even to cry, right? Like, especially in the past few years, we've heard, hey, let men cry, whatever. But it's like, what about like the intensity of grieving, the intensity of loss? Loss is more than just being sad. I mean, I remember the next day, I didn't even want to get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. And like I said, she just let me. And I don't know how many people feel like they have the space in life when it comes to loss to feel, to be. Because feeling is more than just happy, sad. There's such a physical manifestation almost of that intense amount of emotion. Does that make sense? I mean, what is your take on it? What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And is allowing yourself to grieve not only in just like the sadness of it, right? But also like be able to be happy about the moments and allow yourself to actually be happy sometimes, or just every single feeling that you go through that you try to like suppress because of embarrassment or you're not being strong enough for your family or whatever feeling, right? That maybe is more important at the moment than actually grieving. I think allowing yourself to go through the different stages, whatever stage you're in, or if it's just sadness for 3 days, obviously, it's also good to have people that are going to walk it with you. Because it can become very also into the realm of depression. So I think having a group of people that care enough to allow you to grieve in a healthy way, in a way that allows you to feel and also not stay there forever, right? Just kind of grow from it.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to cry, to feel, to remember, to have your heart break, and that's okay. But also have that support that's going to tell you, okay, today we got to get out of bed and we got to go walk and we got to do this so that you remember that there is still life. And it's not just the death of someone. She's in a much better place. It's now how we learn to live with her not being in it.
You said something about, that when you're allowing yourself to feel the full brunt of that emotion, of the sadness of it, that it can cause destructive behaviors. I think that's such a interesting sentiment because I think there's even saying like, oh, positive emotions can even cause you to have destructive behaviors, that you're having, like we talk about, sadness goes to depression, but even having a good time, even, that's, and people look for ways to have an elevated good time, and then they become addicted to drugs or hang out with people that are constantly destructive behavioral patterns. But coming back to, having the people to be alongside you. I mean, anybody that called, or texted, because my grandma was, everybody,
with everybody.
Yeah. She never met a stranger, and everybody knew her. I got quite a few texts, and I think the instinct of mine when someone said, "Oh, I heard about your grandma. I'm so sorry," was to say,
"It's fine.
It's fine. It's okay. It's fine.
I'm okay. I'm doing okay."
But I remember, I think I only wrote one text back that said, "It's okay. I'm fine." And I remember I just said, "You know what? I'm not." And I'm going to say exactly what I'm feeling. So I started writing back to people really long.
They were probably a little like, I don't know what to do from this point forward.
Complex texts that were outlining how I was feeling. And I think that, a word that I would use to describe myself is authentic. But I think in that moment, that was the most authentic I could possibly be. This moment of severe loss in my life, and not just saying, "I'm okay, I'm fine." I would write to some people saying, "Thank you so much for reaching out." And then I would go into expressing really just the weight I was feeling. And not just the loss for now, but the loss for generations. I mean, that sounds dramatic, but generations to come, where my son, he's only 3, I'm about to be 4, only has such small memories of her, as opposed to I've had a lifetime with her, or that my dad, that's his only living relative that we know of, is gone now, and it's like grieving not just for me, but for the people that, are also going to be missing her,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that you invested so much time into her life before she passed away also allows you to create all these memories that now you can take on for future generations and kind of pass that down to them about who your grandmother was, right? And, it's spending the time with her. Sometimes we take it for granted, or it was for her to not feel lonely, but we don't realize until they're gone that it's really more for us. And those times now are like the most precious memories that you have. Right? So, yeah.
I think that there is a need we're talking about American culture. That's where we live in America, surprise people. And, and we're talking about, I would say, a societal need for, like I said, there's this new wave of people saying, "Oh yeah, like express yourself, be and who you want to be and however." But like, is there enough confidence within yourself to feel like that's a safe thing to do?
Right.
And this is just a question. I don't have the answer. This isn't like a follow-up, and this is why we don't. Like, literally, it's just something I'm thinking. Like, I'm still in grieving about it. Like we're almost a month away from her passing, and I still find myself upset at times, or thinking about her, or we have memorabilia or pictures, and I have to take time to just feel, and I think that's okay.
Well, and my mom even texted us at some point, and my grandfather passed away about 5 years ago, back in the country where I'm from, and we were in a whole different country when he passed away. He was in the hospital for a surgery, and then he was fine, and then he wasn't fine, and then he passed away, and only one of his daughters was in the country, and my grandmother, who's his ex-wife, was in the country, but everybody else was here. And one of the things that my mom told me, because I was her dad, she said, it comes and goes in waves. And it's not where you feel sad all the time or where you're grieving all the time. It's like there are moments in the day that something that you saw reminded you of her, and then you feel it, right? And then you're fine, and then you move on, and then you don't think about it again for another week, and then something else happens that reminds you of something that she used to do, and then you go into that place again, and that's okay to feel, and that's okay to process. And like I said before, it's the fact that you were able to talk to other people that texted you so open and so vulnerable, then that opens up the opportunity for those people to know that they can come to you in that season. If which we're all gonna go through that season at some. I mean, we're gonna die. Like that's just the reality.
My God.
I mean, we're all gonna go through that at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know what family member or child. I mean, just anything. So now, because you were bold enough to feel and to express how you felt in a vulnerable way, now people now are going to feel open and invited, if they go through something or when they go through something like that, to come and talk to you about it and know that that's a safe space. So we talk about all of this and we bring death into what we're talking about today. And it's just to kind of start the conversation and allow people to be okay with talking about it and to be open to talking about feelings. And maybe if some of our friends that are watching know that there is an open space here, and we can't expect other people to do what we want them to do and to open up unless we do the same, right? So I think you even processing all of that with your friends and being open and vulnerable and explaining how you really felt really opened the door for opportunity in the future for other people to feel the same. And then slowly it's, a ripple effect. Like they'll be able to be that for other people, and especially within men in general, because it's one of those things, especially if you're the head of a household and the whole household just went through a loss. The men usually takes on this, will have to carry the household, right? Like we can't fall into this like weakness, or I don't want my kids to see me cry. But one of the first things I told him when we came in here is like, it's okay to tell your baby that his grandmother passed away and to cry with him and to show him that it's okay to express your feelings. And it's okay to feel sad about something that you should be sad about. That's right. And like I said, it's just a ripple effect. And if you can do it in front of your kids, they're going to be able to do it with other people and own their feelings and walk in them and being in control of them more than their feelings being in control of you, right? Because the more you can acknowledge it and you can process them and you can go through them, the more you can control them in a healthy, positive way, right?
Yep.
The same, like you didn't go into a deep hole of depression.
Not yet, anyway. Stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned.
But you never know. Maybe next week.
Maybe next time.
But because you allow yourself to grieve and to go through the process, 10 years from now, it's not going to hit him, in which he's going to now spiral out of control, right? Because there wasn't a healthy outlet for some people.
And as we wrap this first episode up, do you have the quote for us to talk about here? Do you use your computer?
I think I do. I think I have it in my computer.
Well, let me get you the computer, and I'm going to say...
pull up my computer really fast.
Yes, and I'll say this. So, in 2020, with the global pandemic and such crazy times, we kept seeing and hearing these statements of, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. It's like we're all in High School Musical all of a sudden. It was just such a weird time. And there was no time for me in the year that really tested that statement than when I personally suffered the loss of my grandma. And did I find the people who meant when they said we're in this together, whatever this is, whether it's the global pandemic or a very personal, very intimate situation. And so that's just something I've been thinking about as we were preparing for today, was just that statement, we're all in this together. It was such you heard it every day, everywhere last year. And then it finally hit home for me when I found out who was there.
Yeah. So to end today's episode, we're going to end with a quote. I don't know if I'm going to say his last name correctly. Cool. So if you know who this is, if you're family with this person, apologize already. His name is Chuck. Last name is Palahniuk. Palahniuk. There's a K in the end.
That's rough. Sounds
so I apologize.
Hard, yeah.
But he says this: we all die. The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will. So there it is.
Beyond memories, I would say even beyond personal legacy, I think what you have left in your passing is your family. And I think if you loved your family and you treated them in ways that allowed them to be themselves with you, then that's what lasts in the end. What do you think about that quote?
Absolutely. I think that was like our favorite part of the quote, is that we are all going to go through loss and death and everything. And it's taking every day, one day at a time, and really investing in the people that we love, so that when they do pass away, because they will, or when we pass away, we have we have created a legacy that is not money, that is none of this. It's just these experiences and moments that will last, a lifetime, longer than, her memory will last longer than her life did.
Right. That's right.
So,
well, that concludes today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed just
our 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, this short discussion on just death, loss, and grief. Follow us on Instagram at the Kondos, and remember, we're your biggest fans.
Andrea,
Gavin, and we'll see you guys next time.